What's up, y'all? This is Mike Manzer with another Manzer Faust Productions video. And yeah, today I'm going to do a video I've been promising for quite a while. A little later than I would have anticipated it, but it's been a busy month for me. Today I am going to start a new series discussing OCN, Vinegar Syndrome's distribution, their partner labels, and a little bit of a controversial first episode due to the fact that this particular label is no longer a partner label with OCN. They have moved to, I believe, MVD, music video distributors, who have kind of grown out to be more of like a boutique label in of themselves. They've had a good amount of success with the retro catalog of stuff they've been releasing. I think it's called like MVD Rewind or something like that. I only got a couple of them, but they seem to be doing well over there. I'm gonna focus in this video mostly on, actually completely on the OCN affiliated titles, the titles you could still get, provided they're still in stock and in print. You can still get them through Vinegar Syndrome's site, the OCN kind of distribution model. And yeah, so I got 6 titles I'm going to go over. That's kind of the structure that this show is going to go by. Kind of talk a little bit about each film. Yeah, and I really enjoy a lot of what Fun City has put out so far. Another one that I really enjoy, I want to bring up, is the Primetime Panic set that they released. 3 films that were made for TV, and for a future video I'm going to do kind of a box set kind of analysis of that, so look out for that. What I like about Fun City is it takes kind of lesser known films that will kind of stand ahead of their time. They're very influential in future kind of film movements and filmmakers, and you get a lot of interesting kind of films that fall very underneath the kind of mainstream consciousness. Sometimes they star really like prolific, celebrities, movie stars within them. You've got a couple that have Jeff Bridges, you got John Hurd. There's one with an early performance from Robert De Niro when he was starting out, and but they're very like kind of out of their time. They have a vision and a kind of motif to them that is very individual within those time periods, and you would see a lot of the influence from these films carry over into future kind of films and stuff. So I really like that aesthetic. Their focus is like just extremely interesting. It's very eye-opening to a lot of cinema that just kind of falls below the surface. And what I really love about it is like there's a lot of these titles you could see easily put out through something like Criterion, and they would give them a heavy prestiged release. It's just they're not as well known, and we're lucky to have a label like Fun City releasing these, because they're willing to put in a lot more work in getting features in the packaging than Criterion has been able to do for quite a while. Criterion used to be the standard back in the DVD era, but I feel like ever since they moved to Blu-ray, they've released some really cool stuff, but I don't know, man, it's gone downhill a lot. And that's a rant I could get into on a different video. But, so I'm going to go in order of the release. sort of like, if you want to call it the spine number. Um, yeah, like I said, I got 6 releases. These are probably the best of what I've seen on the label. I only have like 8 or 9 releases total. Um, so that includes the box set. So, but I wanted to really focus on these. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm wasting time. Well, let's get into it. First up, the first release they had on the label, and really did, like, you know, it was really like a manifesto in what they would be releasing as far as, like, you know, editions and stuff. And you have Alphabet City. This is a film from 1984. And Alphabet City, you have a real strong kind of neon 80s kind of feel to it. The soundtrack really falls in with like a lot of that classic 80s stuff. It is done by Nile Rodgers, who was famous for being a part of the disco group Chic. Very influential musician in his own right, and his soundtrack for this is just earwormy as fuck. It is amazing. One of the things I didn't mention before is the music in a lot of these is a very big component to the film. How they use their soundtracks is very revolutionary, just as much as how they use lighting and cinematography and characters and, you know, kind of bending genres in a way. This is a very simple film as far as like plot. Basically, you got a guy living in Alphabet City who is kind of stalked by the mob. I believe he's an artist. It's been a minute since I watched it, but he's an artist, lives with his girlfriend, and the apartment that his mother and I believe little sister are tenants of has been threatened by this kind of like real estate mafia kind of figure, and he basically wants to burn it to the ground, not evacuate, and if, you know, people are left in there, tough shit for them. And the person that he wants to start this, so it doesn't go back to the, you know, real estate company or whatever you want to call it, is the main character of the film. So you have this conflict, and how can he get out of this and make sure at the same time that his family is safe. I believe he has a child, and trying to deal with the wife and his girlfriend wife, trying to deal with their kind of like relationship sort of falling apart. You get a lot of kind of crazy characters. Michael Winslow shows up in this, and you think Michael Winslow, like, you kind of think of the Police Academy movies. He's the guy making all the goofy noises and stuff, but in this, he's seriously great. It's almost like a kind of Marlon Wayans in Requiem for a Dream. You know, you see him as kind of like a buffoon-y, kind of goofy character actor, and you see him in one of these films, and it just blows you away. Michael Winslow definitely plays an amazing, like, kind of street-wise. I think it's implied he's a crackhead, but he is, like, definitely, like, a great character within this film. It's got a very heavy, like I said, neon kind of 80s, but it's very, like, kind of early in that, and it's not represented like you see in a lot of, like, Nicholas Winding Refn films these days that are calling back to that kind of exaggerated memory of that people have of the 80s and the nostalgia of that period. This is a lot more down to earth. I would kind of compare it to a bit of Michael Mann's stuff from the 80s, especially Miami Vice and Thief. like Thief, the soundtrack plays a big part in this, just like Thief did with Tangerine Dream. And I love the characters in this. It's just very grounded. There's not a lot of flash to it. It's just, they got the cameras. They has kind of a guerrilla kind of feel to it at times. The cars are amazing. There's a lot of great driving sequences. Everything in this movie just fucking works. It's fantastic. And yeah, it was a great starting point to this label to really show how they're gonna do, get movies and how they're gonna present them from here on. So yeah, Alphabet City. Next up, another really great one. I think there's 3 in here that are really just amazing. So Alphabet City, this one, and one of the ones I'm going to discuss later. And that's Walking the Edge from '83. This is directed by, I looked up the guy's name and I wasn't familiar with the rest of his filmography, but why this is very important as far as my film watching is it features not only Robert Forster, but you also got Joe Spinell, and I had 2 of my favorite kind of character actors during this period. Robert Forster, solid leading man, but he is very much still a character actor to me. He very much kind of very quiet performances. He's not very over the top unless it calls for it. He plays very reserved, kind of, I don't want to say apathetic, but very passive kind of characters until, they're pushed to their absolute edge, and then you really see what happens. So basically this movie is focused around a taxi driver who kind of unwillingly gets involved with this woman who is going up against a gang that has just killed her husband and son. And at first he's kind of standoffish. They kind of develop a bit of a relationship throughout the film. The gang is really interesting in this. It's the main guy, and it is Joe Spinell, and they kind of hang out at this punk bar. Real sleazy atmosphere to it. This has a lot in common with those classic kind of New York films of the 70s. You can really relate it to the works of Paul Schrader, Taxi Driver or Rolling Thunder, any of those kind of vigilante kind of films. And it's just fantastic. The chemistry between the 2 main characters is very good, and it's very believable, and they work off each other very well. It's not all just, you build up this relationship very authentically, and I really enjoy that. There's some side characters. One of his neighbor ladies that's always kind of a little bit too nosy about what's going on. She's very entertaining to watch within the film, and it's just a fantastic kind of it's sleazy. It's got that grit of those 70s films, but it is very gorgeous at times. There's a lot of the shots of the city and kind of those elements that are just glorious. And so this would really fit in with a lot of those kind of heavy mood vigilante films of the 70s. You could even throw in Death Wish in with this, and there are some similarities to Death Wish. Average man going up against these crime organizations within his area. The cops won't do anything to help. Seems like the entire world's against him. So very, very great film. Had an awesome time with this. Walking the Edge. So going back into the 70s, this one's a little later in tone, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. The main stars of this are at their peak at this point, um, and just great characters. There's some awesome, hilarious, like kind of bits in this. Just I had a really good time. It's a real laid back, tranquil kind of film. Directed by Frank Perry, who everybody like in the film world kind of talks about. I've only seen The Swimmer with Burt Lancaster, which to me has a much different kind of vibe. It's a lot more depressing, kind of like I don't know how to describe it. It's a really good film if you have not seen it. But this is also fairly enjoyable, and that's Rancho Deluxe from 1975, I believe. Yeah. And this stars Jeff Bridges and Sam Waterston, um, and even heavily features Slim Pickens, who I always like seeing show up in films, and a really good performance from Harry Dean Stanton as well. Who, like, you know, you look at Harry Dean Stanton in this from '75, and you look at like Repo Man and the stuff he was doing in the '80s, and this man does not age. You know, like he kind of looks the same throughout all these decades. All these guys in this movie definitely always bring an amazing performance. So this film really focuses on Jeff Bridges and Sam Waterston as these kind of cattle. I forget what the actual. So they're like illegal cattle hunters, wrestlers, whatever you want to call it. I don't really know the terminology. I know dick about cowboy culture or whatever you want to call it. Throughout the mountains of Montana, and it just looks gorgeous. This is probably just the look of this film is one of my favorites on the label. Just seeing the landscapes of Montana and all the different like mountains and everything like that. It's just beautiful, and it really does kind of put you in a mood. It's very like kind of easing. This movie is very puts you at ease, and you enjoy kind of traveling along with these characters. It's kind of a horse road movie, if it were. Getting into shenanigans with women around town. So I really love Sam Waterston's character in this. He plays a Indian, Native American, my bad, but at the time they would probably call him Indian, who just kind of wants to be like his own guy, but really does like pull a lot from his Native American heritage. He's always kind of saying these kind of I don't know, kind of like pseudo philosophical kind of musings and stuff throughout the film, and it does have a bit of like a stoner kind of humor to it. Definitely, Jeff Bridges' character does very much remind me of the dude in a later movie, The Big Lebowski, which I adore. So, yeah, it's a really fun movie. You got the soundtrack, Jimmy Buffett. He does a pretty good job. I'm not really a Jimmy Buffett fan. I take it or leave it, but it does fit the aesthetic. Slim Pickens showing up in this is awesome. I love him in most things that he would show up in. He's just such a character, and he always has this screen presence of just like that character. It's almost like a Woody Allen had that one character. In a way, Charles Bronson later on in his like later career had that one character you would associate them with. And Slim Pickens, man, is just the best like redneck over the top kind of guy in everything he does, and this is no exception. He is killing it in this movie, and everybody in this is amazing. So yeah, I can't really go into too much about this, but enjoyable. You'll love the characters. It's just like a very like much a hangout kind of film, but yeah, liked it a lot. Rancho Deluxe. So this is my most recent watch, and I really love the aesthetic of this late '70s English. But you have a lot of this is another one where music plays probably the most important role in the film out of all of these. It's a road film, and the way the music is used, it's almost like a mixtape. And throughout the film, you get all these different kind of set pieces that work around this mixtape, and even like a couple of the characters this person meets on the road. And I really like the packaging they went for on this, since it's got that like kind of mixtape aesthetic. And that is Radio On from Christopher Petit. I believe this is 79. Okay, so this is like end of the 70s. Got this awesome. They made it look like a tape case on the outer sleeve, and then you got the tape itself. What I like about this release is it lists the different titles and bands and everything like that, and like this is an amazing soundtrack. But the film, the aesthetics of it are gorgeous. It's heavily in black and white, and it's kind of this guy going through the traveling through Britain in order to find out kind of what happened to his brother who died mysteriously. And you see him run into all these different kind of wacky characters along the way. There's a guy who's like a war veteran who's hitchhiking, and he has to get that guy out of his car. That's kind of an entertaining kind of segment. And the music in this, just like the mood is ridiculous, and they almost play out like almost little music videos. And the main character is like a radio DJ, and they do have a lot of discussions on where music is going and developing kind of cultures surrounding music at the time. You got an interesting appearance from, of all people, Sting, from the Police, obviously, and like he's really young in this. I think this is probably around the time that the Police were just starting to get attention, and his scene in this is very entertaining. He's good. I've seen him in a couple of things. Most importantly, his performance in the Quadrophenia movie. It's just I had a lot of fun with this. A lot of it from the soundtrack. The main character has this very kind of enigmatic, his look is very important later on in these kind of like scenes, and it's like kind of the birth of new wave at the time. You got tracks by Robert Fripp, Devo, David Bowie, Ian Dury, a couple of Restless Eric tracks, Kraftwerk, and all of them are like utter classics. Lene Lovish, just amazing all the way around with the soundtrack, and the film is really good too. It's more just like kind of set pieces. It's quieter kind of film, not a ton of dialogue in some of this, so but if you like that kind of aesthetic of a road movie with a very big emphasis on soundtrack and kind of landscape of more urban Britain, this is definitely a really great film. Fantastic release too, and this is probably my favorite release they've done, and this is really one of my favorite films I've found in the last like 5 or 6 years. I originally saw this through Criterion Channel, and it just blew me away. And definitely falls into that neo-noir kind of conspiracy theory kind of thing that was really big in like the late 70s. I believe this is from, so it's 81, so it's like right at the tail end of all that, but man, this was a blast. And it's a movie I keep coming back to. That is Cutter's Way. Just wow. And I love the old like VHS tape kind of aesthetic, the case that they went with. Very cool. Cutter's Way is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite neo-noir kind of films from the 80s. I still kind of have a kind of a connection with this in like the 70s. It has more of that 70s filmmaking kind of feel. Basically, Jeff Bridges plays a yacht salesman who's kind of a womanizer. He's going back and forth with a ton of women, and he has his friend played by John Hurd. I can't remember. Alex Cutter, and Alex was involved in the Vietnam War, so he's he's missing a limb or two, and like has an eye patch, and he's kind of just like this very heavily conspiratorial, doesn't trust anything of the government. You got a lot of heavy drinking to deal with this PTSD. He kind of doesn't realize his wife is having an affair with Jeff Bridges' character. And one day, basically what the starting point of this film is, Jeff Bridges witnesses I think it's like a senator or some high kind of local government figure dumping what appears to be a body in a dumpster, and it begins this whole like kind of convoluted mystery that him and John Hurd, Alex Cutter, are really just kind of diving into, and Alex is way more like into it. And like, Jeff Bridges' character doesn't really want a lot to do with it. He's a little bit reluctant to do as much searching into this as Cutter is, but man, the way they play off of each other is very entertaining. This is probably like one of my favorite John Hurd performances, and that says a lot because I really love a lot of what he's done. He was a phenomenal actor. Definitely got kind of shafted later on in life, a lot like Mickey Rourke. He did a couple of things later on that I thought were really good. So, yeah. But this is just a great movie. And if you have not seen it, I definitely recommend it. And, yeah, Cutter's Way. And last is the final title that Fun City released under the OCN partner label banner. And I did enjoy this. It's not my favorite. And it's also kind of a little capitalizing for me on one of my being a remake of one of my all-time favorite films. And this has a different vibe, so maybe if I revisit this a couple more times, I will get it more. It takes place more in the 80s, I believe. Yeah, this is from 83, so you got quite a bit of 80s, late 70s, early 80s kind of vibes in a lot of these. And, the main actor in this is one of my favorite actors of that time period, and that's Breathless, the remake of the classic. Like I said, one of my all-time favorite films, Jean-Luc Godard from the late 50s, like a seminal piece within the French New Wave movement. And this follows a lot of the same kind of storyline. If you don't know, Breathless is about a kind of this vagabond, loner kind of character. He's involved with this woman who sells, newspapers. She came over from America, and I forget where this one takes place. I need to revisit it a few more times. I just got it a few months ago. So basically, the main character unintentionally shoots a cop while he was being pulled over by during like a routine traffic stop kind of situation, and it's him kind of trying to escape the law and stay out of they're pretty much hunting him down throughout it. And this has like the same story. I feel like this focuses a lot more on the sexuality of the story. The love interest is a lot more, that part of the plot is a lot more of a focus within this. So, again, like, my judgment of this is a little skewed just because it's a remake of one of my all-time favorite movies. I feel like if I revisit this one a bit more, it'll grow on me. But yeah, solid watch, really great within that kind of like early 80s kind of aesthetic, but definitely very ahead of its time. You can see stuff that would come later, the more sex thrillers. You can feel a little bit of that vibe. So Esther House kind of films. Yeah, so I'll spend more time with this in the future and maybe follow up on that. But I would definitely recommend it, even if you are more, familiar with the original. Really, really good. So yeah, that'll do it for this first video. If you have anything to say about any of these titles, you want to evolve on them, if there's like any titles on the label that I hadn't discussed, put them down in the comments, and I'll do a follow-up to this down the line. Once a month I want to kind of do these kind of partner label retrospectives, and there's no end, and every couple of months they add a new one, so I could go on with this series for a long time. But yeah, usual, like, comment, subscribe, getting close to 100 subscribers. 5 months getting to 100 subscribers and not really having that much of like a reach. There's a lot of other people doing this kind of content on YouTube, and that's what I love. I don't want all the attention. I'm one of those types of people who is just like, I have my kind of input on this media, whether it's music or Blu-rays, films, but at the same time, I am one voice within many, and my opinion can change very rapidly, and hearing somebody else talk about something might influence that. So yeah, if you got something to say about what I've talked about or some other films, put them down in the comments. Let's have this discussion. That's what's important about the physical media discussion space, is this community is based on, conversations, communications with other people, and just learning from each other. And that's what I'm passionate about. Got a video coming probably later on in the week. Gonna do another stop, watch, and listen. mostly talking about films in that one. July's coming. Got a lot planned for in July. It's gonna at the end of the month is gonna be my 6 months on YouTube. So at some point, I want to do kind of a retrospective, not retrospective, just kind of like a looking back at what I've talked about, and kind of my plans for the future, different series that I might want to dive into. Um, I got too many series, but it gives me a lot to talk about. I have a lot of interests that branch out into different categories, and diving into these categories is fun for me. You get those. I learn from watching a lot of this stuff. I learn from listening to a lot of this stuff. Like different cultures that I wasn't like familiar with due to being an American, not really leaving New England at all in my life. So I really consume these cultures through these pieces of art, and it's extremely important to me. These are universal language. So if you want to follow me on social media, I am the Hordes of Manzerfaust on Instagram. And that'll about do it. So this is Mike Manzer with another Manzerfaust Productions video. And as always, stay fucking metal.